The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than most cities. Thousands of seats filled the curved walls, each one holding a different alien species. Some looked like giant insects with clicking sounds. Others glowed like living light. Some had tentacles instead of arms. All of them were nervous today. Ambassador Kira stood at the center podium. She was tall and thin, with blue skin that sparkled like crystal. Her people, the Velthani, were known for being calm and logical, but today even she seemed worried. In her hands was a data pad that contained the most dangerous proposal the galaxy had seen in centuries. Members of the council, Kira began, her voice carrying across the huge room. Today we discuss the application of the human species to join the elite galactic special forces. The reaction was immediate. Thousands of voices erupted at once. The insect-like Thraxians made angry clicking sounds with their mandibles. The glowing luminos flickered like broken lights. Even the usually silent rock people called the granites rumbled with displeasure. Captain Lee Deho sat in the human section with perfect calm. He was a middle-aged man with short black hair and steady dark eyes. His uniform was simple compared to the fancy clothes worn by other species. But everyone in the room knew who he was. Everyone knew what humans could do. The shouting continued for several minutes. "Butchers!" screamed a Thraxian representative, waving forearms in the air. "They destroyed entire fleets at Kepler 7. The Ghost Warriors of the Void," added a luminos, its light pulsing red with anger. "They appear from nowhere and vanish like shadows. They broke the Crimson War by doing things no honorable species would do," rumbled a granite, its voice like falling rocks. Each species had different names for humans. The Thraxians called them the Swarm Killers because humans had somehow defeated their supposedly unbeatable hive fleets. The Luminos named them Void Ghosts after human ships appeared in battles where no ships should exist. The Kralians, proud warrior people, simply called them the Feared Ones. All the names meant the same thing. Humans were dangerous. The elite galactic special forces had existed for 3,000 years. They were the best warriors from every member species. When something threatened the entire galaxy, the special forces handled it. They fought with honor, followed the rules of war, and used proper military tactics that had been tested for centuries. Humans did not follow rules when their lives were at stake. Admiral Park Minho finally stood up from his seat. He was older than Captain Lee, with gray hair and scars on his face from old battles. When he spoke, the room slowly became quiet. Even angry aliens respected the human who had won the impossible battle of Titan Station. "Honored members," Admiral Park said in a calm voice, "we understand why you fear us. We know the stories you tell about human tactics. Some of them are even true." A few nervous laughs came from the audience, but most remained silent. "But the galaxy faces new threats," the Admiral continued. "The Void Hunters have returned. Your conventional methods have failed 3 times against them. Entire star systems have disappeared. Billions of people are dead or missing." The room became completely quiet. Everyone knew about the Void Hunters. They were creatures from another dimension that fed on living energy. They had technology that made no sense and could appear anywhere without warning. The special forces had tried to fight them using traditional tactics. They had failed every time. "Perhaps," Admiral Park said slowly, "it is time to try unconventional methods." Kira activated her datapad. Images appeared in the air above the podium. They showed human soldiers in action during recent conflicts. The images were not pretty. Humans fighting in ways that shocked other species, using the enemy's own weapons against them, turning simple tools into deadly traps, winning battles they should have lost. "The human military record speaks for itself," Kira said. "In every major conflict of the past 2 centuries, human forces have achieved victory through innovative tactics and adaptive thinking. They excel at irregular warfare, rapid response, and unconventional problem-solving." A Thraxian representative stood up. Its insect-like head tilted as it spoke. "They excel at breaking every rule of civilized warfare. They use psychological attacks. They turn our own people against us. They fight without honor." Captain Lee finally spoke. His voice was quiet but carried clearly through the Great Hall. "Honor is a luxury for those who can afford to lose. When the survival of innocent people is at stake, we use whatever methods work." The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood to voice their concerns. The Etherians worried about human unpredictability. The Cynthians questioned whether humans could work with artificial intelligences. The Kralians respected human fighting ability but doubted their discipline. Through it all, the human delegation remained calm. They answered questions honestly. Yes, they used unconventional tactics. Yes, they broke traditional rules of engagement. Yes, they were dangerous, but they got results. As the day wore on, something interesting happened. Younger representatives from various species began asking different questions. Instead of focusing on human methods, they asked about human success rates. They wanted to know how humans achieved the impossible so often. The Cynthians were particularly interested. Their quantum consciousness found human unpredictability fascinating rather than frightening. They had studied human tactics and found patterns that even humans did not seem to notice. Finally, the time came for the vote. Each species cast their decision electronically. The results appeared on screens throughout the hall. The counting seemed to take forever. Numbers changed as each vote was recorded. For most of the count, the no votes led by a significant margin. Then the larger species voted and the gap began to close. With only one vote remaining, the result was tied. The final vote belonged to the Cynthians. Their representatives were artificial intelligences that thought in ways organic beings could not understand. They had no emotions, no fear, no traditional concepts of honor or proper behavior. The Cynthian vote appeared on the screen. Yes. The hall erupted again, but this time the noise was different. Shock, anger, fear, and from some corners relief. The motion had passed by a single vote. Ambassador Kira stood again at the podium. The motion is approved. Humanity is hereby invited to join the elite Galactic Special Forces. Integration will begin immediately. Admiral Park stood and bowed formally to the assembly. "We will not disappoint you," he said. Then he paused and added with a slight smile, "We will, however, probably surprise you." As the council session ended and beings from across the galaxy filed out of the Great Hall, one thought echoed in many minds. They had just changed everything. For better or worse, the galaxy's most feared species now had official permission to do what they did best. The universe would never be the same. The Special Forces training facility on Nexus Prime had seen many things in its long history. It had trained warriors from dozens of species. It had tested the limits of courage, skill, and determination. But it had never seen anything like Sergeant Kim Ji-won and her human squad. The facility was huge, built into a mountain on a planet that existed only for military training. Everything was designed to be difficult. The gravity was heavier than most worlds. The air was thin. The weather changed without warning from burning heat to freezing cold. Commander Torvin watched the training exercises from his observation deck. He was a Kralian, which meant he looked something like a cross between a bear and a lion, but much bigger. His people were proud warriors who valued honor above everything else. They had been the backbone of the Special Forces for centuries. Today, Torvin was not happy. On the training field below, a mixed squad was attempting a hostage rescue simulation. The exercise was designed to test teamwork, tactical thinking, and proper military procedure. There was a correct way to complete the mission. Every species in the galaxy used the same basic approach, except the humans. While the Kralian and Etherian squad members set up a proper perimeter and analyzed the enemy positions, the humans had simply vanished. Torvin checked his monitors and found them in completely unexpected places. One was talking to the actors playing hostages through a ventilation shaft. Another was somehow inside the building's computer system. A third was having a friendly conversation with one of the guards. "What are they doing?" Torvin growled to his aide, Sub-Commander Lyrelai. She was an Etherian, tall and graceful, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Her people communicated through musical tones and were known for their logical thinking. "I believe," Lyrelai sang in her harmonic voice, "they are rewriting the rules of the exercise." On the monitors, chaos erupted in the simulation building. But it was not the kind of chaos anyone expected. The hostages suddenly began fighting their captors. At the same time, all the lights went out. Emergency alarms started blaring. In the darkness, the human squad moved through the building like ghosts. The exercise ended in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That was a new record. There were 0 casualties among the hostages. All enemy targets were neutralized, but the humans had not followed any part of the standard procedure. "This is not how warriors conduct themselves," Torvin rumbled. his claws digging into the metal railing of the observation deck. Perhaps, Lyrelay sang back. That is why they are more effective than warriors. The problems continued in every training exercise. Private Choi Hyunwoo, a human combat engineer, was assigned to work with Vextar, a Thraxian demolitions expert. Thraxians were insect-like beings who thought in very organized, logical patterns. They were excellent at following precise procedures. Choi Hyunwoo taught Vextar how to make explosives from cleaning supplies, food ingredients, and medical equipment. Things that could be found anywhere. The Thraxian was fascinated and terrified at the same time. This knowledge is dangerous. Vextar clicked through his mandibles. What if it falls into wrong hands? Then we make sure we're the ones with the right hands, Choi replied with a grin. Meanwhile, Corporal Yoon Nari, a communications specialist, was working with Brightsong, a luminous energy being. The luminous were creatures of pure energy, who could communicate instantly across vast distances. They could not understand how any species could function without constant contact with their commanders. Yoon Nari showed Brightsong how humans operated when all their technology failed. Hand signals, simple codes, even messages written on paper. The luminous was horrified by these primitive methods. How can you make good decisions without constant information updates? Brightsong pulsed in confused colors. Sometimes the best decision is to stop thinking and start moving, Yoon replied. But the real shock came during the joint exercise against a simulated Void Hunter incursion. This was the most serious training the Special Forces conducted. The Void Hunters were the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Their technology was beyond understanding, and their tactics made no sense to normal military thinking. The exercise began normally. Mixed alien squads took their assigned positions around the simulation target, a mock-up of a Void Hunter ship. The standard procedure was clear: establish a perimeter, analyze the threat, call for reinforcements, and wait for orders. The humans did something completely different. Team leader. Oh Seongjai gathered his human squad and studied the enemy ship for exactly 30 seconds. Then he announced, "We're going aboard." "That is not the mission objective," protested Draktor, a young Kralian warrior assigned to the human team. "The mission objective," Oh replied, "is to neutralize the threat. We're just being more direct about it." What followed was the most chaotic exercise in Special Forces history. While every other squad maintained proper formation and waited for orders, the human team disappeared into the enemy ship. For 20 minutes, no one heard from them. The exercise controllers were preparing to declare them casualties when Oh Seung-jae's voice came over the radio. "Mission complete. We have control of the enemy vessel." The simulation ended with the humans doing something that had never been attempted in real combat. They had captured a Void Hunter ship. Not destroyed it. Captured it. Commander Torvin stormed into the debrief room where the human team was calmly cleaning their equipment. His massive form filled the doorway as he glared at them with angry yellow eyes. "Your methods are chaotic," he roared. "They are unpredictable. They violate 17 different Special Forces protocols and 3 interspecies treaties about proper conduct in warfare." Oh Seung-jae looked up from checking his weapon. He was a small man compared to the huge Kralian, but he showed no fear. "But they work," he said simply. "And now we have intelligence on Void Hunter technology that you've been trying to get for centuries." "That is not the point." Torvin's claws scraped against the metal table.
"There are procedures."
"There are rules. There are proper ways to conduct military operations. And there are 40 billion people dead because your proper ways don't work against the Void Hunters," Oh replied, his voice still calm. "Maybe it's time to try improper ways." The argument that followed could be heard throughout the training facility. Other squads stopped their exercises to listen. Instructors gathered in hallways to debate what they had witnessed. Word spread quickly to Special Forces Command. Sub-Commander Lyrelay found herself in an unexpected position. As the senior Etherian officer present, she was asked to provide an official assessment of human integration. Her report would influence how the entire Special Forces treated humanity. She spent the night reviewing recordings of human training exercises. She studied their tactics, their decision-making processes, their methods of achieving objectives. Her analytical mind processed thousands of data points. Her conclusions surprised even herself. The humans were not just effective, they were revolutionary. They approached problems from angles that had never been considered. They found solutions that worked but violated everything the Special Forces had been taught. Most importantly, they got results. The human integration has been educational, she sang to Commander Torvin the next morning. They have forced us to question assumptions we did not even know we had. Torvin was still angry. They have no respect for tradition, no understanding of proper military conduct. They treat warfare like a game where rules can be changed at will. Yes, Lyrelai agreed. And perhaps that is exactly what we need. The integration period was supposed to last 6 months. After 6 weeks, Special Forces Command made an unprecedented decision. They cut the training short and assigned human squads to active duty. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when the stakes were real. The last entry in Commander Torvin's training log read simply, "The humans have not just joined the Special Forces. They have begun to change it. I am no longer certain this is a bad thing." The emergency alert came at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time. Across the Special Forces Command Center on Nexus Prime, screens lit up with red warnings. Officers from dozens of species rushed to their stations as the most dreaded signal in the galaxy echoed through the halls. Code Black. Complete system silence. Commander. Torvin arrived at the command center within minutes, his massive Kralian frame moving faster than should have been possible. The main display showed a star map of the Kepler-9 system. Yesterday it had been marked in green, indicating normal operations. Now it pulsed an ominous red. "Report," Torvin growled at the duty officer. "A nervous young Thraxian named Kliktar, sir, at 0322 hours. All communication from the Kepler-9 system ceased simultaneously." Kliktar clicked rapidly. "All automated signals, all ship transponders, all planetary broadcasts. Everything stopped at exactly the same moment." Torvin felt his blood run cold. The Kepler-9 system was home to 3 inhabited worlds and served as a major trade hub. Over 40 billion souls lived and worked there. Ships passed through constantly, carrying goods and passengers across the galaxy. "Probe results?" Torvin asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Long-range sensors show the system still exists," Kliktar replied, "but we're detecting massive energy readings unlike anything in our databases. And sir, every ship we've sent to investigate has disappeared without sending a single message." The implications hit Torvin like a physical blow. This was not a communications failure or a solar storm. Something had taken the entire Kepler-9 system. Something that could make 40 billion people vanish without a trace. The Special Forces Rapid Response Team assembled in the main briefing room. For the first time in the unit's history, humans were included in a critical mission. The mixed squad of 12 members represented the best the galaxy had to offer. Squad leader Bayek Minsu studied the faces around the briefing table. 4 humans, including himself. 2 Kralians, brothers Draken and Tormax, whose people valued honor and courage above life itself. 2 Etherians, Lyrelai and Symphonia, whose musical voices could calculate probability faster than most computers. 2 Thraxians, Cheetok and Vrask, whose hive-mind connection made them perfect scouts. And 2 Synthians, Node 7 and Quantum Prime, artificial beings whose quantum consciousness could process data in ways organic minds could not understand. "Standard reconnaissance protocol," Commander Torvin explained, his voice heavy with concern. "Calls for passive observation from maximum sensor range. You will jump to the edge of the system, gather intelligence on what happened, and return immediately for a full fleet response." Beck Minsu nodded, but his dark eyes were already thinking beyond the standard plan. "Understood, sir. However, if there are survivors, every hour we spend gathering data is an hour they don't have. The mission parameters are clear," Torvin replied firmly. "Intelligence gathering only. No heroics." The hyperspace jump to Kepler-9 took 6 hours. During the flight, Bayek studied every piece of data they had about the system. 3 worlds, Kepler-9A, an industrial planet with 20 billion residents, Kepler-9b, an agricultural world feeding half the sector, and Kepler-9c, a research station studying exotic matter, all of them connected by a network of space stations and shipping lanes that never slept, all of them now silent. The Kralian warriors, Draken and Tormax, spent the journey in meditation, preparing their minds for battle. They were twins, identical except for the scars each had earned in different conflicts. Both understood that they might not return from this mission. The Etherians, Lyrelai and Symphonia, sang complex mathematical harmonies as they calculated probability matrices, Their music filled the ship with haunting melodies that somehow made the numbers easier to understand. The odds of finding survivors were dropping with each calculation. Cheetok and Vrask, the Thraxians, prepared their specialized scout equipment. Their hive mind connection would allow them to share information instantly, making them perfect for reconnaissance. But they were also preparing for the possibility that they might lose that connection, something that terrified their species more than death. Node 7 and Quantum Prime processed all available data about the Void Hunters. Their quantum consciousness could think in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but even they found Void Hunter technology confusing and illogical. When they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-9 system, what they saw defied comprehension. The 3 planets were still there, but they had been changed. Kepler-9a, once a gleaming industrial world, was now a hollow shell. Its surface had been stripped away in perfect geometric patterns, leaving behind a complex lattice of exposed metal and stone. Kepler-9b looked like someone had taken bites out of it, removing chunks of matter in impossible spirals. Kepler-9c had simply vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex of energy that hurt to look at. The star itself, once a bright yellow sun, now pulsed with unnatural colors. Streams of energy flowed from its surface toward a massive construct at the center of the system. The construct was larger than most moons, a writhing mass of geometric shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could process. Void Hunter Harvester, Node 7 announced, its synthetic voice carrying no emotion despite the horror of what they were seeing. Classification: Omega-level threat. Estimated construction time less than 24 hours. Symphonia's harmonic voice trembled as she sang her analysis. Dimensional anchor points detected throughout the system. They've locked this entire region of space into a harvesting configuration. The construct is feeding on stellar energy, planetary matter, and... She paused, her silver skin flickering with distress. Life force readings. Massive life force readings coming from inside the construct. They're still alive, Baek Minsu said quietly. 40 billion people are still alive in that thing. Reconnaissance complete, Tormax rumbled, his scarred face grim. We should return immediately and report our findings. That's what the protocol says, Beck agreed. But protocol was written by people who never faced anything like this. The human squad leader stood and moved to the ship's main display. The harvester pulsed with stolen energy, growing stronger every moment it fed on the trap system. By the time a full fleet could assemble and travel to Kepler-9, there would be nothing left to save. New plan, Beck announced. We're going in. The reaction was immediate. Draken and Tormax began arguing about honor versus wisdom. Lyrelay and Symphonia calculated the odds of success at 0.03%. Cheetok and Vrask clicked nervously as their hive mind processed the insanity of the proposal. Only the Cynthians remained calm. Please define going in, Quantum Prime requested. Beck pulled up detailed scans of the harvester. Look at the power distribution patterns. The construct is using the stolen energy to maintain dimensional stability. If we can disrupt those patterns from inside, we might be able to force it back into normal space where it can be destroyed. That plan requires infiltrating an Omega-level Void Hunter construct, Node 7 observed. No organic being has ever survived such an attempt. No organic being has ever been crazy enough to try, Specialist Hong Jiho added with a grin. He was the youngest member of the human squad, barely old enough to serve, but his intuitive navigation skills had saved ships in impossible situations. This is madness, Tormax growled. We are 12 beings against a construct the size of a moon. Then the odds are almost fair, Sergeant An Soo-jin replied. She was checking her weapons with the calm efficiency that marked all human soldiers. Besides, we're not trying to destroy it. We're just trying to break it. The debate continued for another hour, but Beck could see the decision forming in his team's minds. The Kralians were warriors who could not abandon innocent people. The Etherians calculated that any chance of success, no matter how small, was better than accepting certain doom. The Thraxians understood that sometimes the hive required sacrifice from individuals. The Cynthians found the tactical challenge intellectually stimulating. And the humans? The humans had never met a problem they wouldn't try to solve, no matter how impossible it seemed. Mission parameters are now: infiltrate the harvester, locate and extract survivors, disrupt dimensional anchors, and escape before the construct collapses, Beck announced. Questions? Just one. Lyreley sang softly. Are we completely insane? Probably, Beck admitted. But 40 billion people are counting on us being the right kind of crazy. The ship turned toward the massive harvester, carrying 12 souls into the heart of an alien nightmare. Behind them, the edge of the system began to distort as the Void Hunter's dimensional trap grew stronger. They had perhaps 6 hours before the harvester finished feeding and vanished back into the void, taking 40 billion lives with it. The clock was ticking. The inside of the harvester was a nightmare made real. Corridors stretched in directions that should not exist, twisting back on themselves in loops that hurt to think about. Gravity changed without warning, sometimes pulling sideways, sometimes pushing in all directions at once. The walls pulsed with veins of energy that looked almost alive, feeding power to systems no sane mind could have designed. Specialist Hong Jiho led the way through this impossible maze. His young face focused with intense concentration. He moved by instinct rather than logic, somehow knowing which passages to take even though they all looked the same. The rest of the squad followed in single file, weapons ready, minds struggling to process what they were seeing. How do you know where to go? Cheetah clicked nervously to Hong. The Thraxian scout's usual confidence was shaken by the complete lack of logical structure in the harvester's design. I don't, Hong replied honestly, but this place wants us to find the center. I can feel it pulling at us. The Etherians, Lyreley and Symphonia, sang soft harmonies as they tried to map their route. Their mathematical minds rejected the geometry around them, but they forced themselves to record everything anyway. Someone would need to understand this place if they hoped to escape. They had been moving through the twisted passages for 2 hours when they heard the first sounds, not mechanical noises or alien chittering, but something that made their hearts race with hope and terror. Voices. Billions of voices, all speaking at once in a low murmur that seemed to come from the walls themselves. This way, Hong said, his voice tight with emotion. He broke into a run, following passages that led deeper into the construct's heart. They found them in a chamber so vast that the ceiling disappeared into darkness above. Thousands upon thousands of transparent cylinders filled the space, each one containing a being from the Kepler-9 system. Humans, Velthani, Kralians, Thraxians, Etherians, even species the squad didn't recognize. All of them floating in some kind of energy field, their life force slowly being drained to power the harvester. 40,000, Node 7 calculated after scanning the chamber. This appears to be one of 17 similar chambers throughout the construct. Nearly 700,000 people. Symphonia sang in a voice filled with horror. All of them being used as living batteries. Sergeant An Soo-jin moved to the nearest cylinder, studying the control systems. Inside, a young human child floated unconsciously, her face peaceful despite the nightmare around her. Can we wake them up? The stasis systems are beyond our understanding, Quantum Prime replied after interfacing with the alien technology. We lack the knowledge to safely extract them. Then we'll figure it out, Beck Minsu said firmly. Hong Soo-jin, work on the control systems. Draken, Tormax, find us a defensible position. Everyone else, start mapping escape routes. Squad leader, Brask interrupted, his mandibles clicking with agitation. We lack transport capacity for 700,000 beings. Extraction is impossible. Impossible is just another word for hasn't been tried yet, technical specialist Park Jong-ho replied as he studied the chamber's power systems. We don't need to extract them. We need to wake them up and turn this place into a riot. The plan that emerged over the next hour was pure human madness, but it had a terrifying logic to it. The harvester was designed to process passive victims who couldn't fight back. It had never encountered active resistance from within its own chambers. While half the squad planted quantum charges throughout the construct's power grid, the others began systematically awakening prisoners, not to evacuate them but to arm them with anything they could find and turn them loose inside their prison. The first cylinder they opened contained a Kralian engineer named Korthan. He emerged from the stasis field confused and angry, his massive claws ready for battle. When he understood what was happening, his roar of rage echoed through the chamber. How many of us are there? He demanded. 700,000, Draken replied grimly, and we're going to wake up every single one. The awakening process spread like wildfire through the chamber. As each prisoner emerged from stasis, they helped awaken others. Kralians roared battle songs as they tore apart machinery with their bare claws. Thraxians formed instant hive mind networks to coordinate resistance. Etherians sang complex harmonies that somehow disrupted the Harvester's control systems. And the humans. The humans did what they always did. They found ways to turn the enemy's strengths against them. "Look at this," Park Jong-ho called out, his hands deep in an alien control panel. "The entire construct is powered by a central core that feeds energy to subsystems. If we can reverse the flow, we can turn the prisoners into a power drain instead of a power source," Beck finished. "The Harvester will start eating itself." Chaos erupted throughout the construct as thousands of angry beings began tearing apart their prison from within. Emergency alarms that made no sense to organic ears began wailing. Void Hunter constructs that had never needed to deal with internal threats found themselves facing something they couldn't understand. Prey that fought back. But the real surprise came when the squad reached the Harvester's central core. The space was impossible to describe properly. A sphere of twisted dimensions where geometry followed rules that existed nowhere in normal space. At the center, a pulsing mass of energy drew power from across the entire construct. "Quantum charges ready," Sujin reported, "but these won't destroy the core. Best we can do is disrupt it temporarily." "That's all we need," Beck replied, studying the dimensional anchor points that kept the Harvester locked in normal space. "We're not trying to destroy this thing. We're trying to steal it." The plan he outlined was so insane that even the humans questioned it for a moment. Instead of destroying the Harvester, they would sever its dimensional anchors while maintaining core power. The massive construct would be dragged back into normal space where a galactic fleet could surround it. "You want to capture a Void Hunter Harvester?" Lyrelei sang in disbelief. "Capture is such an ugly word," Park replied as he connected the last quantum charge. "We prefer aggressive salvage operation." The escape became a running battle through collapsing reality. As the dimensional anchors failed, the Harvester began tearing itself apart. Corridors twisted into new configurations. Gravity reversed and shifted wildly. The walls began bleeding energy as the construct's power systems went into overload. The squad fought their way through passages filled with panicking Void Hunter constructs. These beings had never faced organized resistance and didn't know how to respond to it. Their weapons were designed to harvest energy, not fight wars. They lost Vrask when a dimensional breach opened beneath his feet. The Thraxian scout simply vanished, his last words a defiant click of determination. Quantum Prime sacrificed himself to hold another breach closed long enough for the others to escape, his quantum consciousness scattering into random data as he burned out his processing cores. But the plan worked. As their escape ship cleared the Harvester's influence, the massive construct materialized fully in normal space. Its interdimensional capabilities were severed, its harvesting systems disrupted, and 700,000 rescued beings were aboard a ship that could no longer escape into the void. More importantly, waiting for them was the largest galactic fleet in history. Every major species had sent ships when word of the Kepler-9 disaster reached them. Hundreds of vessels surrounded the crippled Harvester, their weapons trained on the alien construct. Fleet Command, "This is Special Forces Squad 7, Bike transmitted as their ship limped toward the fleet. "Mission accomplished. We have captured one Omega-level Void Hunter Harvester, with approximately 700,000 survivors aboard." The silence that followed lasted for nearly a minute. Then Fleet Admiral Chen's voice came back, filled with disbelief. "Did you just say you captured a Void Hunter Harvester?" "Yes, sir. It was easier than trying to blow it up." Another long silence. Then, "Report to the flagship immediately. And somebody please tell me how 12 beings just did what 3,000 years of conventional warfare couldn't accomplish." As their ship docked with the flagship, Beck looked back at the crippled Harvester floating in space, surrounded by the fleet. For the first time in galactic history, they had an intact Void Hunter construct to study. They had rescued hundreds of thousands of people who should have been lost forever. And they had proven something important. Even the most impossible enemies could be defeated if you were willing to think like humans. The galaxy would never underestimate that kind of thinking again. 6 months after the Kepler-9 incident, the Galactic Council chambers looked very different. The same thousands of seats still filled the curved walls, and the same alien species still gathered to debate the future of the galaxy. But everything had changed. Ambassador Kira stood at the center podium again, her crystalline features reflecting the warm light. But this time she was not alone. Flanked by human officers in their simple uniforms, she presented a report that would reshape galactic military doctrine forever. "Members of the Council," Kira began, "6 months ago, You voted to allow humanity into the elite galactic special forces. Today, I present the results of that decision. The great display screens around the chamber lit up with data that made even the most skeptical representatives lean forward with interest. Mission success rates, casualty reports, intelligence gathered, threats neutralized. The numbers told a story that was almost impossible to believe. Special Forces mission success rate has increased by 847%, Kira announced. Casualties among rescued civilians have dropped to near zero. Intelligence gathered about Void Hunter technology exceeds all previous acquisitions combined. In the human section, Colonel Yu Sunwoo sat quietly beside Admiral Park Minho. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen too many battles. As the new director of human integration, she had overseen the transformation of the Special Forces from a traditional military unit into something entirely new. The captured Void Hunter harvester had changed everything. For 3,000 years, the galaxy's best scientists had studied fragments and debris from destroyed Void Hunter constructs. Now they had an entire ship to examine, its systems intact and its technology revealed. What they learned was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The Void Hunters were not just raiders or conquerors. They were farmers. The entire galaxy was their crop, and every few million years they returned to harvest the energy that had grown since their last visit. Civilizations rose and fell according to their schedule. Entire species had been erased from history without ever knowing why, but the humans had broken that cycle. The Kepler-9 operation was not an isolated success, Kira continued. Human-led teams have since repeated the impossible. The Vega system rescue, the Centauri incident, the liberation of the lost colony worlds. Each time they have achieved victory through methods that our military academies had never considered. The reaction from the Council was mixed. Some species showed obvious relief and gratitude. Others displayed worry about what humanity's growing influence meant for the galaxy's power structure. A few seemed genuinely frightened by what they had unleashed. Commander Torvin, now serving as Colonel Yu's aide, had perhaps changed the most of anyone. The proud Kralian warrior had spent months working alongside human units, learning their methods, adapting their innovations to work with traditional military doctrine. His reports had become required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. The humans have not simply joined the Special Forces, he had written in his most recent assessment. They have taught us to see warfare as problem-solving rather than ritual combat. They have shown us that winning is more important than looking honorable while losing. The evidence was overwhelming. The Special Forces now routinely accomplished missions that would have been considered impossible just a year ago. Hostage rescues in situations with no conventional solutions, infiltration of enemy facilities that should have been impregnable. Most remarkably, they had begun turning military defeats into intelligence victories. When a traditional assault failed, human-led teams would find ways to extract valuable information from the failure. When enemies adapted to counter their tactics, the humans adapted faster. They treated every setback as a learning opportunity, and every victory as a chance to try something even more ambitious. But the real transformation went deeper than just military success. Sergeant Kim Ji-won, now promoted to lieutenant and assigned to train mixed-species units, had revolutionized how the galaxy thought about teamwork. Her training programs combined human adaptability with alien strengths in ways that created capabilities no single species could achieve alone. Kralian honor and human cunning, Etherian logic and human intuition, Thraxian organization and human improvisation, Cynthian calculation and human inspiration. Each combination produced results that surprised everyone, including the participants. We have learned something profound, Kira announced to the assembled council. The sum of our combined capabilities is greater than any of our individual strengths. Humanity has not replaced our traditional methods. They have shown us how to transcend them. The most telling change was in how the galaxy's enemies had begun to respond. Void Hunter activity had shifted dramatically. Instead of the confident, methodical harvesting operations they had conducted for millennia, the constructs now approached inhabited systems with obvious caution. Some had even retreated from systems they could have easily conquered. Intelligence reports suggested that the Void Hunters were adapting their technology to counter human tactics. They had never needed to do such a thing before. For the first time in their interdimensional existence, they considered organic resistance a legitimate threat. The implications extend beyond military operations, Colonel Yu reported to the council. Every major trade guild has requested human consultants to improve their logistics. Scientific research teams are adopting human experimental methods. Even diplomatic corps are learning human negotiation techniques. The transformation was not without problems. Some species struggled to adapt to human-style thinking. Others worried about losing their cultural identity in the rush to embrace human innovations. A few military leaders complained that traditional honor codes were being abandoned in favor of practical effectiveness. But the results spoke for themselves. Private Choi Hyunwoo, the combat engineer who had once taught Thraxians to make explosives from household items, now ran a technical school that trained beings from across the galaxy. His students learned not just how to use human innovations, but how to think like humans when facing the unexpected. Corporal Yoon Nari had become the galaxy's leading expert on communication during crisis situations. Her techniques for maintaining coordination, when all technology failed, were now standard training for all special forces units. The captured Void Hunter technology had been reverse-engineered and adapted for galactic use. New ship designs incorporated dimensional anchor disruptors. Weapon systems now included energy drain capabilities. Most importantly, early warning networks could detect Void Hunter dimensional signatures hours before their arrival. We are no longer simply defending against threats, Admiral Park announced during his address to the council. We are actively hunting them. The galaxy has learned to be proactive rather than reactive. The philosophical implications were staggering. For 3,000 years, galactic civilization had been reactive, responding to threats as they emerged. The special forces had been a shield, protecting what lay behind them. Humans had taught them to be a sword, seeking out danger and eliminating it before it could threaten innocent lives. As the council session drew to a close, new mission alerts were already arriving. Distress calls from frontier worlds, reports of impossible phenomena, requests for assistance from species that had once feared human involvement. Each alert was met by mixed special forces teams that combined human innovation with alien expertise. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about monsters and nightmares. When something truly terrible threatened everything you loved, sometimes the best defense was to have your own monsters on your side. Lieutenant Kim Ji-won, now addressing a class of mixed-species recruits, summarized the human philosophy that had transformed galactic military thinking. The universe is vast and full of things that want to kill you. But remember this, we're scarier than they are, and now you get to be scary too. In the depths of space, Void Hunter collectives processed new tactical data and began calculations they had never needed to consider. For the first time in their multidimensional existence, they faced the possibility of defeat. The organic species they had farmed for millions of years had learned to farm them back. Humanity had not just joined the galaxy's elite forces. They had taught the galaxy to think like humans. The universe would never be the same. And for the first time in eons, that was a good thing. The age of passive defense was over. The age of human-inspired galactic warfare had begun.